Three giant fish species just made an incredible comeback in U.S. rivers, and what happened to the Asian carp next amazed scientists. In the fall of 2022, biologist Daniel Ortiz was running his 12th consecutive year of fish surveys on the Tennessee River near Kentucky Lake. For over a decade, his electrofishing counts near Duck River bottoms had followed the same grim pattern. Nets full of silver carp, barely any native species. That October, something didn't add up. His crew ran the same transect 3 times, recalibrated the equipment twice, and still came back with numbers nobody expected. Where they used to haul in 200 carp per hour, they now counted fewer than 40. Ortiz assumed it was a fluke of the season. It wasn't. The information in this video was cross-checked using data from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, the Mississippi Interstate Cooperative Resource Association, and field notes shared by researchers directly involved in the surveys. The Tennessee River stretches over 650 miles, cutting through Appalachian foothills before joining the Ohio River system. It is a working river, with barge traffic, hydroelectric dams, and one of the most productive freshwater fisheries in the country. In the 1970s, bighead and silver carp escaped aquaculture ponds during flooding in Arkansas and Mississippi, and by the early 2000s, they had colonized the entire Tennessee Cumberland system. By 2015, silver carp made up an estimated 60% of fish biomass in some backwater stretches, enough that boaters wore hockey helmets to avoid being struck by fish leaping from the wake of their engines. Wildlife agencies threw everything at the problem. Commercial harvest incentives paid fishermen by the pound. Tennessee alone spent close to $12 million over 8 years on removal contracts, acoustic deterrents, and a pilot unified method that herds carp into nets using sound and bubble curtains. The technique works by exploiting the carp's own panic response. Underwater speakers blast frequencies the fish find intolerable, while a wall of rising bubbles blocks their escape routes, funneling entire schools toward a single net rather than scattering them across open water. It is labor-intensive and expensive to run at scale, which is part of why agencies were watching so closely for anything that could work alongside it. The results were real but partial. Tons of carp removed every season, populations knocked back in targeted zones but never eliminated. Then, without any new program launching, the Duck River bottoms numbers started falling on their own. Ortiz brought in a second team to install baited underwater cameras at 4 sites along the backwater. What they filmed over the following winter changed how state biologists talked about carp control in the southeast. 3 native species, all of which had been in serious decline for decades, were quietly reclaiming territory and doing damage the deterrent programs never could. The first was the alligator gar's smaller cousin, the short-nosed gar, but the real standout was its larger relative already established downstream, the paddlefish. Polyodon spathula, one of the oldest surviving fish lineages in North America, can grow past 5 feet and 60 pounds, using its long, paddle-shaped snout to detect electrical signals from prey in murky water. Paddlefish had crashed across Tennessee in the mid-20th century due to dam construction blocking spawning migration and decades of poaching for caviar, a black market trade that got so severe in the 1980s and the 1990s that Tennessee wardens ran undercover sting operations targeting roe traffickers along the river. TWRA's stocking program, which released over 40,000 juvenile paddlefish into the Tennessee River system between 2008 and 2021, had quietly rebuilt a population large enough to start affecting the food web. Paddlefish don't eat adult carp, they filter feed on zooplankton, but stomach content studies from Middle Tennessee State University found paddlefish now compete directly with juvenile silver carp for the same food source, which researchers believe is suppressing carp recruitment before fish reach adulthood. The second species surprised even Ortiz's team. Blue catfish, which had always been present but never in these numbers. Necropsies on 41 catfish caught near the survey sites found juvenile carp in 63% of stomachs with food present, and in several individuals, carp made up the entire stomach content. Some of the larger catfish examined had multiple carp in different stages of digestion in a single stomach, suggesting repeated feeding on carp schools rather than one-off encounters. Blue catfish can reach over 100 pounds and use barbels to hunt by smell in low-visibility water, which lines up with how carp move through these murky backwaters. The third was the freshwater drum, a fish most anglers dismissed for decades as a trash fish, not worth targeting. Drum have powerful pharyngeal teeth built for crushing shellfish, and researchers found they were increasingly feeding on carp eggs and newly hatched larvae during spawning season, a stage of the carp life cycle almost no other native predator was exploiting. None of this means the crisis is over. A 2023 review from the Mississippi Interstate Cooperative Resource Association was careful to note there is still no direct evidence that predation alone caused the population decline in the Duck River bottoms. Removal fishing and the acoustic deterrent program were both still active in the same period, and the effects are likely combined. To sort out how much credit belongs to the fish versus the equipment, researchers have proposed a multi-year tagging study that would track individual paddlefish, catfish, and drum against carp egg and larval counts at the same sites, season over season, to see whether predator numbers and carp recruitment actually move together or just happen to shift at the same time. Scientists are cautious for good reason. Silver carp remain abundant just a few miles downstream, and a single female can release over 1 million eggs in one spawning season. Interestingly, a similar story is unfolding on the other side of the world. In Iran's Anzali wetland, invasive silver carp introduced decades ago for algae control have recently seen local declines that biologists there link partly to a resurgence of native pike perch, a predator that had nearly disappeared due to habitat degradation. Different continent, different species, same underlying pattern. When native predators recover, invasive fish lose ground even without a single new program targeting them directly.